お待ちしておりました。それではお気をつけていってらっしゃいませ。
Welcome to the Labyrinth of Galleria, a dangerous labyrinth with very valuable magical trinkets. You take the role of the Lantern de Phantasmagorie, or Fanti for short, a wandering spirit sealed within a lantern. You are assisted by your spirit medium, Eureka de Soleil, as well as the resident witch, Madame Marta. Your objective is simple: explore the labyrinth and search for the Curio de Arts. And of course, try not to die. Let's talk about the actual gameplay. If you've never played a dungeon crawler RPG, the concept is fairly simple. You explore a dungeon in the first person. Every step and action takes up a turn. Traversing the labyrinth is by no means an easy feat. Various obstacles stand in your way, some of which can be lethal to your party. As you progress, you'll learn new abilities that help you traverse the environment. For those familiar with the previous game, Labyrinth of Refrain, movement is a bit more freeform, and the labyrinth itself is more treacherous. But it's not just overcoming your obstacles, it's also defeating monsters within the labyrinth. That's why you have a brigade, a mini army, if you will. Every character you take into combat is created by you. This is the game's main draw: character customization and character growth. Your various characters are customizable in almost every facet. No pun intended. You can name your characters. You can choose your character's facets or classes. You get to choose their gender. You also get to customize their appearance. It doesn't just stop at appearances though. You get to determine their personality traits, which affects their stat aptitudes and various other aspects within the game. You also get to choose their stat growths and what starting skill they start with. Really getting into the nitty-gritty of the character creation system would probably take the entire video. Just know that character customization is a strong suit, and as you progress, you unlock more options, including new classes. In Labyrinth of Galleria, you have multiple different avenues of making your puppets more and more powerful. Aside from leveling up your characters, you can also find more powerful equipment in the labyrinth. Items have rarities, and of course higher rarity items have a chance of getting prefixes. Any facet can use any weapon that you give to them, but each facet has a preferred weapon type or two. There's also a feature later on in the game that you can unlock to exponentially increase the character permutations one may have. Of course, to make full use of the system, you will need to grind. But grinding in the pursuit of creating the perfect character is nothing new. That's only half of your Witch Brigade though. Your other half are your soul packs. Your soul packs are just as important as your units. You control 5 covens, and each coven can have its own soul pact. And these soul packs govern everything. How many characters can be part of your Witch Brigade, what donums or special skills they have, what stat penalties or stat bonuses you get, etc, etc. All of this makes for a highly customizable party that's unique to you. Combat on paper is fairly simple to understand. Standard turn-based JRPG goodness. You can attack, defend, use special skills, and some facets have special innate abilities, like the Shino Mashira's ability to do multiple attacks in one turn. Unique to Labyrinth of Galleria and its predecessor, Labyrinth of Refrain, is a system known as gore hits. There are critical hits, but sometimes critical hits can be gore hits. Gore hits do a significant amount of damage, even to bosses. However, you too can be gored. They could potentially lose a limb. And of course, losing limbs is about as catastrophic as you might expect. On top of taking significant damage, you lose a portion of your maximum health. You also lose access to whatever equipment is in that limb, and if you're especially unlucky, you may get decapitated, which means instant death and you can't revive until you go back to base. Enemies are varied and have various different types of attacks, different weaknesses to exploit, and some even react differently depending on your character's personality types. The enemies in this game are no joke, especially if you come unprepared. Also on the field, you can find roaming mini-bosses, far more powerful than trash mobs on the same floor. It's highly advised that you avoid them at all costs, at least until you're powerful enough to fight them. I will say, the game can be a little difficult, especially to start. It's very possible to wander into areas that you're not supposed to be in until later on, and as such, you'll be outclassed by enemies that are way higher level than you are. Suffering a total party wipe is pretty bad, but at the very least, any items you've collected or story beats you've progressed remain. Here are some valuable tips. Always manually save. The game does feature an autosave slot, but you should always make a backup save in case you make a change that you don't really like. My second piece of advice is never selling any items classified as loot. The game features a number of side quests that require you to collect items and turn them in, and some of these items are random items that have no real purpose besides being sold to the store for some money. You'll want to keep them so you can do these side quests. And finally, learn how to read closely into things. The game's soundtrack is simply put amazing. I really shouldn't be surprised given that this game was developed by Nippon Ichi Software. You also have Takehito Harada's signature anime art style, which belies how dark this game can get at times. This is your minor spoiler warning. If you don't want to know anything about the story or even the story's structure, go ahead and skip to the listed timestamp. A good chunk of the story doesn't actually happen within the labyrinth, but rather outside of it. The story progresses when you complete various witch reports. The game starts out fairly cute and lighthearted, but as you may have expected, this doesn't last. The game also explores a number of difficult to talk about subjects that are all covered in the mature content description, so there's your fair warning. The game has a number of unexpected twists and turns within the story, and inevitably, the status quo changes drastically. As the game progresses, the story raises more and more questions, with a satisfying payoff. It takes a while for the story to get started, but once you start to learn more about the story, or rather, the nature of the story itself, there's a major catharsis factor. There's quite a few twists and turns I genuinely didn't expect. The only issue with the story I can see people having is the fact that a lot of things happen, but you don't really see it per se. You witness a lot of action happen within the dialogue itself, but it's definitely more of a reading sort of deal. Alright, spoiler warning is over. Labyrinth of Galleria has a lot to sink your teeth into, and it gives you a lot to think about, whether it's a story, or how to progress, or how to best optimize your characters. A fair warning though, this is more evident towards the beginning of the game, but you will get lost. And at times you will be at a loss as to how to progress in the game, but stick with it and you will be rewarded handsomely. For those familiar with dungeon crawlers like Etrian Odyssey, this is definitely up your alley. And for those of you familiar with the Labyrinth of Refrain, this is an improved game on almost every aspect. You don't really need to have played Labyrinth of Refrain to understand the story. That said, if you're not familiar with any dungeon crawler RPGs, just know that you're in for a great time. And yes, if you're wondering, this game works on Steam Deck perfectly. As of the writing of this video, I've encountered zero issues whatsoever. It's not the most graphically demanding game, so you can actually run this at 60 FPS if you like. But given the game isn't really a reflex-based game, you could definitely run this at 30 FPS and save a bunch of power. If you like high-tech lowlife, you should check out the rest of my channel. And if you like the rest of my channel, you should like, subscribe, and spread the good gospel of high-tech lowlife. Furthermore, we have a community Discord server. There's a link in the description down below. Check us out.